The night my father tried to steal my inheritance, I was 8 months pregnant and lying on a cold floor with my wheelchair overturned beside me. My water had just broken, and my father was looking down at me, not with horror, not with guilt, but with panic about what his corporate colleagues were thinking. My name is Emma. I'm a remote graphic designer living in Austin, Texas. If you saw me rolling down the sidewalk, you'd probably see a woman who looks like she has everything under control. But look closer, and you'd see the metal frame of my wheelchair, the permanent anchor in my life since I was 7 years old. When doctors diagnosed me with a severe progressive spinal condition, I grew up believing in family. I was raised on the idea that blood was thicker than water, that parents were protectors, and that home was a sanctuary. The reality inside my house was something else entirely. To my father Arthur, a corporate executive obsessed with appearances, I wasn't a daughter to be loved. I was a broken investment, a stain on his masculine pride. Whenever his wealthy business associates came over, I was tucked away in the back rooms like a shameful secret. My brother Logan was the golden child, athletic, charming, everything Arthur could brag about at his country club. While thousands were spent on Logan's baseball camps and coaching, my physical therapy, which my doctor said was critical to preserving my upper body mobility, was quietly delayed. I learned early to take up as little space as possible and accept whatever crumbs they threw my way. Then my grandfather Thomas died. He was the only person in my family who truly saw me. He knew exactly what kind of man Arthur was. So when his will was read, he bypassed Arthur completely and left me his historic $450,000 ranch-style property in the hills of Austin, along with a $150,000 medical trust fund. For me alone, the air in my parents' house turned to ice that day. Arthur stood in my living room looking down at me in my chair and told me that a girl who couldn't walk didn't need a house with acreage. He told me I was being selfish, that Logan, as the male heir, deserved the real estate to back his future, and that was when the blackmail began. For 3 years, my mother Brenda called me crying every week. How stressed Arthur was, how Logan's university dreams were slipping away, how I was the only one who could save the family from financial embarrassment. I was so desperate to hear my father say he was proud of me, just once, that I let them wear me down. Over those 3 years, I quietly transferred $80,000 of my own inheritance into my parents' accounts. Logan's apartment, his textbooks, his meal plans, a European summer trip he claimed was essential for networking. Every time I hit send on a transfer, I told myself I was buying peace. Logan never once called to say thank you. My father still looked at my wheelchair with disgust. I thought $80,000 was the price of keeping them satisfied. I had no idea their greed wasn't a fire that could be put out with money. It was a black hole, and now it wanted the house June 6th. The warm Texas air was thick with expensive catering and floral arrangements. Logan had just graduated, and Arthur had transformed their backyard into a high-profile venue. Over 100 guests, corporate colleagues, local politicians, country club friends, a live jazz band. I was 8 months pregnant, ankles swollen, chronic spinal pain flaring in the heat. Noah had been adjusting my cushions and bringing me water all afternoon. Then I asked him to run to the car to grab my orthopedic back brace I'd left in the trunk. I'll be right back. Don't move. 5 minutes. The moment Noah stepped through the front doors, a heavy shadow fell over me. I turned my wheelchair to see Arthur and Logan walking directly toward me. Logan in his graduation sash. Arthur with a cold, terrifying intensity in his eyes. He didn't pull me into a private room. He didn't lower his voice. He stood right there in the middle of the crowded hall, a few feet from his corporate associates, and reached into his suit jacket. He slammed a thick document onto my lap. "We're ending this today. Sign the paperwork." I looked down. A quitclaim deed. Total unconditional transfer of my grandfather's $450,000 ranch house to Logan for $0. "Dad, I told you last week. I'm not signing. Noah and I are raising our son in that home. It's my son's future." Logan stepped forward. "You're confined to a chair. You and Noah can live in a flat apartment. This property belongs to the male heir of this family." "I am not signing it," I said, loud enough that heads began to turn. I looked toward my mother. She met my eyes, saw the fear on my face, and deliberately turned her back, clinking her champagne glass with a neighbor. Arthur leaned down, his face twisting with venomous fury. "I paid for your doctors, I paid for your chair, you will not embarrass me today." "Let go of my chair," I screamed, trying with all my upper body strength to push his hands from the armrests. My scream turned heads. Guests stopped talking, and that was when Arthur snapped. In a blind, unhinged rage, in front of over 100 witnesses, he grabbed the left side of my wheelchair and violently flipped it completely sideways. The world tilted. Before I could raise my arms, my heavily pregnant body crashed onto the hardwood floor. The impact shuddered through my damaged spine. White-hot agony exploded behind my eyes. Then a terrifying rush of warm fluid soaked through my dress. My water had broken. A full month early, triggered by the fall, I lay on the cold floor, clutching my belly, crying out in terror as the first labor contraction ripped through my body, in front of a completely silent, horrified crowd. The jazz music withered away. Over 100 people stood frozen. I looked up from the floor. Arthur wasn't kneeling down to check on his grandchild. He wasn't calling for help. He was scanning the faces of his corporate colleagues, watching his pristine reputation shatter in real time. Logan stood paralyzed beside him, whispering, "Dad, everyone saw you. What did you do?" Neither of them reached for me. In that moment, the last shred of my daughterly devotion died. Using every bit of strength I had left, I dragged my arm up toward my chest and pressed my thumb firmly onto the side button of my smartwatch. Months earlier, because of my high-risk pregnancy and spinal condition, I had configured a specialized emergency SOS shortcut. One press. Dial 911. Broadcast live location. Begin automatic audio recording. The screen flashed silent red. I said nothing out loud. I laid my head back down and let the watch's microphone capture everything. The gasps of the crowd, Arthur and Logan whispering frantically about how this would ruin his job offer, how they needed to control the narrative before the police arrived. My family thought my disability made me powerless. As the faint wail of sirens began rising through the Austin hills, I knew the trap was sprung. The front doors crashed open. Noah ran in. The orthopedic brace dropped from his hands when he saw me on the floor. He slid to his knees beside me, trembling. "Emma. Oh my God. Noah." He pushed me. My water broke. Noah stood slowly and turned to face Arthur, a dark, furious calm in his eyes I had never seen before. Arthur stepped forward, hands raised. "It was an accident. She had a dizzy spell in the heat. She fell on her own." "Shut your mouth," Noah said, his voice cutting through the hall like a thunderclap. "Don't look at her, don't speak to her." Before Arthur could say another word, red and blue emergency lights flooded through the windows. Because my smartwatch had broadcast a critical domestic distress SOS, the Austin Police Department had bypassed the security gates entirely. 4 paramedics rushed in with a trauma gurney. 2 uniformed officers followed directly behind them. The entire graduation party ground to a halt. Over 100 of the city's most influential people crowded around the doors and windows, phones appearing in hands, watching the elite corporate executive's home turn into a crime scene. As the paramedics strapped me to the gurney, I grabbed the arm of Officer Davis. It wasn't an accident. I raised my wrist and unlocked my smartwatch. My father intentionally flipped my wheelchair because I wouldn't sign my inheritance over to my brother. The entire audio of what happened in this room is right here. Officer Davis pressed play. Arthur's voice filled the hall. Loud. Unmistakable. "You ungrateful, broken little brat, sign it." Followed by the metallic crash of my wheelchair hitting the floor. And my screams. Logan staggered backward against the catering tables. His face had gone completely white. Arthur tried to speak. "Officer, you have to understand the family context. Sir, hands behind your back. Now." The handcuffs clicked shut in the center of his own grand hall, in front of his politicians, his board members, his neighbors. That sound was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. 14 hours later, at 4:12 a.m., the silence of the delivery room broke open, a sharp, healthy cry. The doctor placed my son on my bare chest. Against every odd, and despite the violence, the trauma, the fall, my baby boy Liam was completely perfect. As I looked into his eyes, I felt something massive lift from my chest. The cycle of abuse was broken. He was safe. He would never know the conditional, toxic love I had spent my entire life trying to survive. The legal aftermath was swift. The smartwatch audio, witness statements, and medical reports left Arthur with no defense. Local Texas news stations aired the story. The consequences were total. Arthur was charged with aggravated assault on a pregnant woman causing serious bodily injury. 6 months later, sentenced to 20 years in state prison. No possibility of early parole. Logan's corporate job offer was withdrawn before he could start. His reputation collapsed overnight. He and Brenda were forced to sell assets to cover legal expenses and ended up broke, in a small rented apartment. Today, I sit on the back porch of the ranch house my grandfather Thomas left me. The warm Texas breeze moves through the oak trees. Noah laughs nearby, helping Liam take his first steps across the grass. My family tried to use my disability to make me feel weak. They failed to understand that strength doesn't live in your legs. It lives in your mind, your heart, and your determination to protect the people you love. I lost a toxic father and a selfish brother. I gained a life filled with safety, love, and peace. Their greed destroyed them. Love built everything else.